Welcome back. You're now watching the lifestyle segment on The Weekend Show. Besides the family being the bedrock of the society, the bedrock of a modern society is education. How are you preparing the children and the young ones to be competitive in what we now call a global village? The average Nigerian kid is going to be competing with children across the world, around the world. But it's also unfair that we already have the imbalance where we have the private school system and the public school system. Bringing it back to Nigeria in the Federal Capital Territory for 90 days for a whole term, students have lost one whole academic term of their lives because since the federal government agreed to increase minimum wage, most of the teachers in the FCT have not been paid, and so they decided to take industrial action, which means they were on strike for 90 days. What it means is that those students would either have to spend the time where they would have been on holiday to recoup the term, or they've lost a whole term. In some places, they may just summarize all the work for that term within a couple of weeks, and this doesn't help with the development of the children, with the development of the students. If it isn't ASU strike, then it's secondary schools, then it's public schools. What are we doing to fix it? Now, how they say the buck stops at the president's table in the FCT, the buck stops at the table of the minister of the FCT. Now, we've seen reports recently where he has said the role of paying teachers' salaries is the role of the local government chairman. However, in the last 2 days, we've learned that the Federal Capital Territory minister has agreed with the chairman of the area councils that they will be diverting 10% of the internal generated revenue to pay salaries and arrears. However, we also understand that the National Union of Teachers have said until they've been paid 70% of their arrears and their benefits, they may still be on strike. However, we'll see how the next week goes. But we'll be having a conversation about that on the lifestyle segment. And joining us, we have
Igbo Akerega, a member of the Guild of Editors Nigeria. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure. Good morning.
Comrade, always a pleasure having you here.
Absolutely.
I remember one of the last times we had the conversation, it was about ASU strike a couple of years ago, we had that conversation. But I think it's quite disheartening that at this level in the Federal Capital Territory, schools were on strike for 90 days. And it wasn't even a conversation. All we've spoken about across the FCT, in media everywhere lately, has been 2027 elections. How do you feel about this ongoing situation?
Well, to succinctly capture what is happening is, I would just say that Nigeria appears not to be ready to compete with the rest of the world. Because everyone knows that education is a bedrock of development, across sectors. Whether you even now we are talking about even food security. If you have good education, you'll be able to develop the necessary technology to embrace modern farming. So on all fours, I do not think that we're actually ready. And we should know that Abuja is the nation's capital. So foreigners are here, diplomats are here, visitors want to come to Abuja first. And so what they see as they arrive at Abuja is that children are not in school, students are not in school at the primary school level. And this is the third month of the strike. And nobody appears to be doing anything about it. The FCT minister, Wike, I listened to him some time ago when he said the responsibility to pay salaries is that of the area councils. We have 6 area councils in Abuja. Unlike other states where you have local governments, Abuja has 6 area councils, and the area councils, they have secretaries overseeing the area councils, unlike other states where you have local government chairmen. And now who makes the laws for the area councils, and the FCT? It is the National Assembly. And no word has been heard from the National Assembly. The Senate President, Akpabio, is not saying anything. They are all engrossed with Natasha Akbuti and legal matters. I also understand that all of this is ahead of 2027 to stop the woman from contesting election in Kogi State as for the office of governor. So nobody is actually interested in the life of the average Nigerian parent, the average citizen on the street. I do not see the commitment, the interest. Now, as we speak, 3 months on, pupils are not in classes. And if you drive around Abuja, you are going to see young children from a section of the country at road intersections. Of course, they are easily known as amajiris and all of that. They are all over the place. Now, to add salt to injury, you now have children who are supposed to be in school in the FCT also they're joining the ranks of those ones who are already on the streets. So what does that speak? It speaks some kind of tragedy. It speaks volumes about our preparedness as a nation to engage with other countries of the world. So in the Committee of Nations, we are clearly lagging behind. Last night I was with some of my Chinese friends, and they were, we were just reviewing developments in China. I've been to China myself, and I've seen what that country looks like. China, Malaysia, Singapore, they were known as the Asian tigers now, but in the 70s, they were in the same pedestal with Nigeria. While they are taking giant strides forward, we appear to be marching backward. We are backpedaling, whether in terms of even our political development. Our elections, we can't get it right. Now it is about education. It is about even the nation's capital, the heart of the country, where you now see children out of school. Not just one day, not 2 days, not 1 week, not 4 weeks, not 2 months. It is 3 months counting, and we are still counting. The minister is just telling us now that they are going to look at revenues coming from to pull funds to pay salaries. In any case, what are we even talking about? It is 70,000 naira minimum wage, which is less than, it's about $50. Because I have friends who are teachers in the primary schools. Many of them can't pay their rents. They live in far-flung, whether Tunga Maja after Zuba. Some live in Yanya in Nasarawa State. Far away, they can't afford even housing, accommodation in the city center. And these are teachers. I remember those days, they tell us that the reward of teachers is in heaven. Theatrically or rhetorically, they will tell you that the reward is in heaven. But does anybody get any reward in heaven, realistically? Teachers taught Tinubu, the president. They taught the Senate president. They taught the speaker. They taught every one of us. The English we are speaking today at our toddling ages, teachers taught us how to pronounce A, B, C, D. So if you do not recognize the role and the significance of these teachers, and we just undermine them, then I think we are not really ready to compete. And it is sad. For me, it is a tragedy. And as you rightly mentioned earlier, politicians are busy preparing for 2027. We've seen what has happened in Rivers State. We have seen what happened. I'm from Delta State. We've seen what happened in Akwa Ibom State. I must also say this morning that some of the states in Nigeria, I'm a member of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. Last week we were in Enugu State, where the governor hosted the annual convention of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. I was shocked, I was amazed at the quantum of development at the education level in Enugu State. I am yet to see a state that is thinking like the governor of that state, Dr. Mba. He's building smart schools. Students are already in those smart schools. Nobody's writing on the board with chalks and all of that. They are now using smart electronic devices, including laptops and all of these schools. The schools can compete with schools in China, anywhere in the world, in the United States, in the developed economies of the world. In my state, Delta State, the governor is doing so much. First, many states are even granting a free education to students, particularly at the primary school level. So that one is even taken for granted. The Delta State governor has recruited about 3,000 teachers, and they want to do 2,000 more. Salaries are being paid regularly. Allowances are being paid. So you cannot hear strikes in Delta State. And as I said, Enugu State, and across some states in Nigeria. Zamfara State. What we know about Zamfara is terrorism crisis. But if you go to that state, you see that Governor Lawal is doing so much to also improve the educational standard of that state, such that the 12.5 million children that UNICEF says are out of school, particularly from the northern region, there are governors in some regions, particularly in the northern region, are trying to reduce those numbers. So for me, it is a bad testament that in the FCT, which is, the poster state, the flag of Nigeria, you fly into Abuja, where the roads are well paved, they are good. Wike is doing very well in the area of infrastructure. Well, I must give it to him. Yeah. But education is at the root of any any development effort, whether it's a development trajectory, whether you want to build your scientists, you want to develop your engineering base, researches, and it is at the primary school level that you develop a super structure, mental structure, and prepare the students, to engage. But honestly, I am not happy sitting here this morning. If you from Mondays to Friday, you drive, you see the schools closed, you see the gates closed. I drive around to look at whether there have been some of the schools are open. You just see that the gates are locked. You see the security men guarding those schools sitting at the gate, and people are just behaving as if all is normal, as if all is well. It's almost becoming a new normal that we just accept it. Some of the parents, as I said earlier, some of them are my friends. They are now looking for cheap private schools to put their pupils. And where will you even find the cheap private schools in Abuja? So for me, I don't want to believe this morning that this is some kind of conspiracy, to disempower public schools while encouraging the growth and development of private schools. Nigeria is one country in the world where almost everybody goes to private schools, whether private primary school, private secondary school, private university. They are all sprawling all over. It's a failure of government at that level. And don't forget, the Constitution is very, very clear that the purpose of government is for the welfare and security of citizens. Education is a critical welfare that the government should provide for citizens. And in any case, even if you go to these public schools, they are not entirely free. Students are made to buy their books, buy their exercise books, buy their uniforms, pay for all kinds of things. But yet they still tell you that it is free. So if we must engage, it is not about even paying salaries. How much is the salary we are talking about? It's taken for granted that it's even peanuts. Many teachers are hungry. They don't have access to health facilities. When they are sick, they are not under any insurance. So they have to live with about, let's just say, 100 or 120,000. Because if you say the minimum wage is 70,000, housing is 30, they'll say 35. They put small transport allowance. If you put all of this together, it's not up to 150,000, which is basically, which is just like $100. So where in the world does a teacher earn $100 as salary? So if people are conspiring to make a mockery of the educational system, I think that is sad. It is not something that citizens should be applauding. Many people are not happy this morning as we speak about what's happening in Abuja. And I just hope that the minister, if he's watching us this morning, or even the area council chairman, if they are listening to us, they should please, for God's sake, get these our pupils back to class. NANS declared a strike, an action on Wednesday, but I heard that the DSS invited them to a meeting. The DSS is doing a fairly good job. They are engaging more. Unlike before, you see them, they arrest, they clamp down, arrest the leaders, and put them in detention. But the DSS DG has embraced a different, a more civilized approach to engaging with citizens. So he prefers to allow you to see the figures, see the challenges. Then you make up your mind whether you still want to. So I understand he was able to persuade the NANS leadership in Zone A and Zone C, who are mobilizing across Nasarawa, Kogi, to shut down the FCT secretariat. And of course, the teachers also agreed that they were going to join them. So you could see that if that had taken place, the kind of embarrassment that would have cost the nation. And I do not know, if our votes count, I do not think that politicians will be taking people for granted and shutting down primary schools for 1 month, 2 months, and counting. So that is why some of us, I'm also a civil society person, as president of the Civil Liberties Organization, we think that it is time to evolve electoral approaches that will guarantee that the votes of citizens count. Because if it counts, the action of public office holders, public servants, will become a yardstick for measuring their performances. Once you do not perform well, then it is taken for granted that you are not likely going to win any election, no matter your planning. But unfortunately and tragically, I think our votes don't count in this country so much. And that has created a lot of electoral disillusionment. On election day, people don't want to turn out because they just believe that the votes don't count. Because in every area, in our development trajectory and processes, politics define what we do as a nation. Politics will define, your behavior as a citizen, to define your behavior as a political leader. Unlike, the famous Chinese philosopher, they did say, including Lin Kuan Yew, who developed Singapore, that when the intention of a leader, that's Confucius, I'm trying to quote Confucius now, the Chinese philosopher, say when the intention of a leader is positive, it is good, that the life of the people, their existence will be good. So the intention of our leaders, if it is positive, if it is good, we want to see it, percolating down, radiating in the lives of Nigerians. Yeah, we are not talking about the multidimensional poverty that Nigerians are going through, including the teachers. Because as I said earlier, even if you pay the salary, can an average Nigerian teacher survive on his or her salary? The question is no. So there are a whole lot of issues, trying to, evaluate the challenges that we have in the educational sector. The painful aspect of it is that this is happening in the nation's capital, the seat of power. The villa is here, the president is here, the vice president is here, the Senate is here, the House of Representatives, all the top lawmakers.
The Minister of Education, the Minister of State for Education,
yes.
the FCT Minister.
Exactly. So, and their children are not in these schools anyway. I think that is also why they don't really bother. Because if the children of the Senate president, the children of president are in the public schools, those days, Awolowo and all of that, in the Southwest, they all went to public schools. It is a pride that you are going to a public school. I went to a public school myself. I never went to any private school. And I think I'm doing well. I'm not doing badly. So for people that went to, I don't think that anybody who went to a private school, if I have to engage with this so-called private school, whether at university level or at any level, you could just do better. Because the structure that brought us up those days was well established, was well funded, well grounded. Teachers came to class as at when due, and then they followed specified curriculum that developed, our brain and mindset at the time, whether in terms of patriotism, civic education, understanding the history of your country. We were well grounded those days, and the commitment was there. At the university level, there was even free food. There was cafeteria. When you were an undergraduate university, you could have access to free food. And when I went to Greece in 2000, in the University of Thessaloniki, as we speak, they still eat free food. I left where my accommodation, and I just wanted to experience it. And I queued, and you have a bouquet of food to eat from, like a buffet. You eat to your satisfaction, and then you go to your class. But here it's a challenge, my brother. It's a problem. And it's a responsibility for our leaders to deal with this issue once and for all.
Okay, thank you so much for that insight. But who should Nigerians hold accountable for this? Because this is not just the area councils in Abuja here. There was a time that even the unity schools, secondary schools, were also on strike, saying that they have not been paid arrears. Even the minimum wage was not even implemented. So who should Nigerians hold accountable?
It is the leaders. And who are the leaders? It's those that, have found themselves into public offices, whether at the state level, at the federal level, at the local government level. Now, I also give it to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He's trying to restructure the country gradually. That is the way I look at it. It started from Buhari's time anyway, where local government autonomy is being promoted. Now, the Supreme Court has ruled. There's a substantive judgment of the Supreme Court, which empowers the local government to receive funds directly from federal allocation. So, but whether that is being done, we do not really know. Now, if funds are going to local government chairmen, including the area council chairman in Abuja, then what are they doing with those funds? It means that those funds are either being stolen or they are being diverted. But as I said, in other states, there's a bit of calm at that level of educational structure, at the primary school level. Many of the states are paying salaries to teachers, and there's stability, whether at the primary school level or in the secondary school level. Now, with regards to unity schools, that you know that unity schools are under the purview of the federal government. Yes. The Minister of Education directly oversees the unity schools. Unity schools, the idea behind unity schools like King's College, Queen's College, federal government colleges, that are spread across the country, is to encourage, because Nigeria is a multi-ethnic country with diversity of ethnic groups. It is to encourage young Nigerians to mix up at the school level. such that you can understand the diversity of the different cultural background, while also going to school and make friends across.
Exactly.
But again, this effort is continually being sabotaged by poor infrastructure in the unity schools, poor welfare packages for teachers in those unity schools. And that has also, as you rightly mentioned, that has also led to strikes. If you go to King's College in Lagos, for example, the structure that were put in place by our colonialists, those structures have depreciated. They are not seriously dilapidated, so that we cannot even maintain structures that we inherited, not to talk of building new ones. How many new unity schools have been built since between 1960 and now? It's still the old ones, apart from the federal government colleges. And most of these schools were actually converted, were taken over from the missionaries. Some of these schools, whether at the state level or federal, they take over and then just walk it around and they rename them. But is the federal government able to actually manage those schools? That's a different
Comrade Igo, before we let you go, the new proposal in the meeting which was held within the last 48 hours, which proposes to, I hate to use the word, but divert 10% of the IGR from the area councils to paying the salaries. One, is this legal? And two, is this sustainable? I understand that some of the area council chairmen were not comfortable with it, but now they've agreed to it. And so taking 10% from their wages, from their IGR for the next 6 months to sort out these areas. What happens when doctors go on strike? What happens when...
You'll take another 20% IGR.
Exactly. And also with the local government autonomy, which you just mentioned, doesn't this contradict the intention of the law, which should give them the autonomy?
No, it violates the law, and that is why earlier I mentioned the role of the National Assembly, which is supposed to make laws for the FCT. Why is the National Assembly quiet? The same National Assembly passed the local government autonomy law, which also affected the 6 area councils in Abuja. How were the salaries of teachers in Abuja, in these area councils, paid before now? Was it through deduction, 10% deduction from eternally generated revenue from the councils? I think it is no. There was a first line charge that was coming in and it was seamless. They were paying them. So what happened? What happened in the last 6 months that has led to this sudden change in plans, such that you now put pressure on the funds of the council areas that is supposed to be used in developing other areas? Because if we talk about local government autonomy, including the area councils, it presupposes that this is rainy season and they need to clear, they need to deseat the drainages, they need to build roads within the area councils, provide security, ensure stability in the education sector, ensure the primary health center, PHCs are funded. These are responsibilities of the area councils and local governments, really. In a virile federal federating unit, as we have in Nigeria, federal government, as it were. So if the federating units are truly independent, then they should not only be seen as being independent, they should also be supported to be independent by way of ensuring that the resources that they derive from is used to develop, their areas. It's not something that you have to use in paying teachers and all of that. The salaries that is supposed to be used in paying teachers should be coming from first line charge that is equitable to the local governments, as already decided by the Supreme Court. So it is not something, I think, whether some governors are trying to rework, trying to rewrite the rule, trying to rewrite, the judgment of the Supreme Court by taking certain actions that appears to be backdoor actions that does not lend credence to implementing the judgment of the Supreme Court. We do not need the Supreme Court, actually, to give a judgment about local government autonomy. It is taken for granted. It's provided for in the Constitution that there are 3 tiers of government: federal, state, and local government. So it is provided for. It is clear in the Constitution. But, successive political leaders were not willing to give vent to that. And so I give it to President Tinubu that he came in and he put his foot down on that the local governments should be autonomous. And we're also talking about even state police also. So if all of this come into play, then gradually the subnationals will be extricated from the vice grip of the center.
I agree with you. Thank you so much, Comrade Igo. We'll be monitoring this news and see how it develops. And also within the next couple of weeks, we'll be having you back on to discuss the new tax, the National Revenue Service, because I've seen a list of 63 agencies which this bill may affect the acts which brought them into power. And so we'll be bringing you back to have that conversation.
It's always a pleasure.
Thank
Thank you so
always
much.
a pleasure. Thank you. We'll take a quick break. When we return, we have sports on the Weekend Show. Don't go away.